From the nuclear launch code numbers to the police being able to search you because of laws that don't exist.
Here are 11 things you're not supposed to know about.
Number 11. Easy nuclear launch codes. You're not supposed to know them, I'm not supposed to know them, and our president probably shouldn't even know them either. In modern times, a nuke can be launched anywhere at any time as long as someone has the launch codes. Could the launch codes, which would have been a key component in beginning a nuclear war that would have most likely ushered in an apocalypse, have actually been 00000000? In the Cold War in 1962, John F. Kennedy insisted that the special code be employed in order to fire a nuke. The Air Force insisted that the code be fairly simple, so during a state of panic, the nukes could be fired easily and with less hesitation. And maybe this would throw off hackers because they would expect the code to be more complicated, right? During a time when we were on the brink of a nuclear war, all somebody would have to do is lean their elbow on the zero for 8 seconds and it could end the world. The code was actually like this all the way up until 1982. Number 10. Government Zombie Apocalypse Plan. Even though our government has done some wacky stuff in the past, they are smart enough to formulate a plan for the zombie apocalypse, believe it or not. In a disclosed document called CONOP 8888, the U.S. Strategic Command quickly stated that this document is not a joke. The U.S. Strategic Command also saw this as a possible training tool even if the scenario was just political chaos. But they got pretty deep into detail about things like keeping humans safe from hordes of zombies and how zombies are a risk to national security and so on. They even go on to explain different kinds of zombies and different approaches in order to eradicate them. Some of the steps the military would take in order to wipe out the zombies would include day-to-day operations with further training in combat in toxic locations. They would also do their best to secure infrastructures that provide clean water, sewage systems, and communication systems. Anyways, we all encourage you to read this document when you got some spare time to show you how real the zombie apocalypse could be in the future. Number 9. Cannibalism at Jamestown. Jamestown is a great story for Americans and is always mentioned when we're talking about the first American settlements along the eastern seaboard. But were they all a bunch of bloodthirsty cannibals? The colonists back then in the 17th century had to endure some seriously harsh conditions, especially during winter. Crops failed to grow, importing food was difficult, so it really left them with only one grim choice. They had to eat each other. Recent forensic evidence proves that Jamestown colonists ate each other without a shadow of a doubt. Knife marks on the skeleton of a young girl were found that supported the removal of flesh and other brutal indications that were consistent with cannibalism. This was found at Jamestown and it dates back to 1610. We imagine that there might have been a few more cases of this, but this is the only one that's been confirmed. These are the kind of things they don't really teach you about in your American history class. Number 8. Israel sinks U.S. ship. Could one of America's biggest allies attempt a cold, calculated sneak attack on us? Also known as the USS Liberty incident, the U.S. received friendly fire from an Israeli Air Force jet fighter aircraft and an Israeli Navy motor torpedo boat on June 8, 1967. This was during the Six-Day War between Israel and pretty much the entire Middle East. The ship was in international waters about 29 miles away from the Sinai Peninsula. 171 crew members were injured and 34 lost their lives this day in a pretty costly mistake. Some conspiracy theorists claim that there was no way that this was a mistake though. U.S. Secretary Rusk had stated that they were clearly flying the U.S. flag the entire time and the identification numbers of the ship were also visible. The President Lyndon Johnson accepted the Israeli version of the story at that time, and everything was pretty much dropped. The Secretary of the State, Dean Rusk, still believed that it was a trigger-happy attack by Israel. Number 7. Near nuclear devastation, North Carolina. A serious plane crash took place in 1961 with a B-52 Stratofortress bomber carrying 2 thermonuclear weapons. When the plane malfunctioned, the pilots were ejected from the cockpit, but this also resulted in them dropping their nuclear payload in eastern North Carolina. In 1961, 2 nuclear bombs struck the ground, but miraculously didn't detonate. This disaster would have been powerful enough to completely wipe off the city of Greensboro and nearby towns if the luck wasn't slightly on their side. Each bomb had 250 times the power of the ones that were dropped on Hiroshima or Nagasaki, and they plunged into a muddy field traveling 700 miles an hour. They were finally recovered 20 feet below the ground. Lieutenant Jack Revell, a person responsible for disarming the bomb, stated that there would have been a 100% kill zone within a radius of 8.5 miles. Parker F. Jones stated that one simple dynamo technology, such as a low voltage switch, actually prevented the major catastrophe. Number 6. Johnston Atoll contamination. In addition to some other questionable decisions the government has made, there's an island out there in the Pacific that contains an extremely large amount of contamination. Over the years, Agent Orange, which is a disfiguring herbicidal neurotoxin, had been leaking into the soil here, and no one saw the need to clean it up until 1977. The site began as a biological testing ground in 1965 in Project 112. This is where they tested out things like anthrax and Q fever. Not only were they storing chemical weapons here, but also plutonium, and 45,000 tons of contaminated soil was gathered and placed into a fenced area on the island. Where they placed all the toxic chemicals is still unknown, but we can also tell you that there's at least 300,000 tons of chemical weapons that have been dumped into the sea. Number 5. The inefficient prison system in the US. The judicial system in America seems to be becoming less and less effective at an alarming rate. The US only makes up 5% of the world's population, but somehow manages to get away with locking up 25% of the world's prison population. People convicted of a crime before they have been proven guilty without a shadow of a doubt sit inside a jail cell until they are found to be innocent. Don't forget that just because you aren't a criminal doesn't mean that this doesn't affect you. Housing inmates for just this extra time, waiting for trial, costs $11 million a year to taxpayers. There's 3 times more African Americans in prison than white people, which doesn't represent the demographics of the US. People who enter prison also don't come out the same. They receive discrimination while trying to get a job and better their lives. They're more prone to mental illness, and many lack empathy for offenders. In 2013, there were over 6 million adults either in prison or lacking rights because of probation or parole. The most overwhelming statistic about this whole situation is that 56% of prisoners will get arrested within the next year after release. Then on top of it, 75% within the next 5 years will also return to prison. There are too many people stripped of their freedom and then unable to get their life back on track due to the circumstances of having a bad record. Number 4. Police don't have to protect you. Many believe that if someone is holding you at gunpoint in front of a cop, that cop would actually do his job and save you. Technically, the cop could literally do nothing and not get charged of any crime. Thanks to the Warren v. District of Columbia court hearing, police officers do not owe any specific duty to provide police services to citizens based on the public doctrine. A horrible crime was committed to 3 women sleeping in their home. One woman was able to call police to the scene, but when the cops got there, the suspects fled on foot. They couldn't find the suspects, so they left the scene. The criminals returned to the same house to commit more horrific acts. They managed to call the cops again and tell them that the suspects were back at their home, but this time, no police ever came. After the horrifying ordeal of violence took place, the women wanted to sue the police for failing to arrive at the scene the second time. The trial favored the police, saying that they had no civil duty to protect them. There have been many attempts to appeal this law in clear cases of negligence, and nothing came out of it. Number 3. Police can enforce laws they don't even know. Even if the cop doesn't fully understand the law, this can still give him reasonable suspicion to search you. According to the United States Supreme Court, a police officer's reasonable mistake of the law can provide them with the individualized suspicion required by the 4th Amendment to the United States Constitution to justify a traffic stop. This law came to life during the case of Here in North Carolina, when Here was pulled over because of a faulty brake light. In North Carolina, the minimum amount of brake lights you need is only 1. The cop misunderstood the law and thought that both had to be working properly. During this traffic stop, some contraband was discovered, and Here was charged with illegal trafficking. When he opposed the sentencing, claiming that the cop broke his 4th Amendment, that was overstated because of this new amendment, and he was looking at some hard time. So guys, lessons learned here: don't commit any crimes that you think a cop might think is a crime, or you could be going to jail or intensively searched. We're not saying anything bad, that's just the law. The last thing you want are these men in black approaching you about laws that you don't know about, so watch out. Number 2. Private prison industry. During a recent study from the UK, it showed that 65% of privatized prisons contain a quota for how many people they're supposed to have locked up. The public system is already dealing with problems such as overcrowding, so they began to rely on corporations, which is never a good thing. Private prisons basically rely on you getting locked up in order for them to keep a steady cash flow. The corporations, such as the Corrections Corporations of America, are paid monthly for housing each prisoner. So clearly, the more prisoners, the more cash. States like Colorado have even been willing to house inmates from Arizona or from the state facility. CCA negotiated a quota once the crime rate lowered in Colorado, and private prisons were the prioritized placements of criminals. With the prison population being 10 times the amount it was 50 years ago, it's possible this could have something to do with it. With all the crime in America, business is going just well for CCA, and they raked in $1.7 billion in 2013. Private prisons have also been known to give out more infractions so that you have to stay longer and they can make more dough. And number 1, TSA doesn't protect you. We've all dealt with TSA at the airport, assuming that they're there to prevent terrorist attacks so we can feel safe while flying. We sacrifice our right to privacy, have our bags searched through, remove our belts, and maybe even get cavity search on a bad day. But have they once ever stopped a terrorist attack? The answer is a simple no, and in fact 95% of the time, they flat out failed when the Department of Homeland Security ran a test with mock weapons and explosives. They've been inefficient in confiscating anything really besides novelty items or your toenail clippers. Much of the stuff that gets taken away are things like ninja stars from some anime fans picked up at a convention, and you can check this out on their Instagram. Terrorists are constantly creating new technology, and if they want to get us, they'll find some way to do it. A better solution would be to hire more flight marshals, but then again, it's not law enforcement's duty to protect us.
Hey guys, thanks for watching, and be sure to hit that subscribe button for new videos every day.